Changsheng Wudao. I become a god through sacrifice. Introduction. www.zhaozuiyuan.com. Li Qing traveled through different worlds, and the god of sacrifice attached to the ancient jade pendant came with him. To survive in the hellish battlefield of Shura, one must constantly sacrifice. Sacrifice. Sacrifice again. One sacrificial mission after another is a stepping stone on the road to becoming a god. All kinds of sacrifices were a great exploration of the world's natural resources and treasures. Famous https://www.zhaozuiyan.com. Chapter 1. Sacrificial Jade Pendant. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, this is a cruel alien world, with dilapidated villages and ruins everywhere. Under the scorching sun, some miscellaneous soldiers were carrying stinky corpses. Wang Er, Li Qing patted a man with dark skin and a thin figure on the shoulder. You go rest for a while. Let me handle the remaining corpses right now. Thank you. Thank you, Li Qing. The soldier named Wang Er raised his head and glanced at Li Qing with dry, yellow, cloudy, and lifeless eyes. He grinned and forced out a sentence with gratitude on his face. Then he limped towards the temporary resting place. As Wang Er walked away, Li Qingchang breathed a sigh of relief, then bent down, exerted force on his shoulders and arms, and dragged the corpse on the ground for several tens of meters before throwing it into the pit with a gurgling sound. And just as the corpse fell into the pit, Li Qing shook his hands behind his back without leaving a trace, then straightened up and continued walking towards the next corpse. In the 358th year of the later Zhou dynasty, a sudden drought swept across the three border counties. The drought came very suddenly, coupled with the floods and disasters in the previous years. The people who had received average harvests in previous years had no surplus food. In addition, the exploitation by local officials resulted in insufficient grain reserves in the grain depots of various counties to cope with the disaster. For a time, the people were struggling and starving everywhere. The bark and roots of trees on the outskirts of Yi City have been gnawed away, and even small animals such as squirrels, mice, and grasshoppers have almost disappeared from Yi City. Nevertheless, the number of people starving to death every day is still increasing, and the streets and alleys are filled with corpses. The smell of decay wafts throughout the entire city. Some people say that the Lord of Yi City's mansion is located in the central area of Yi City, and the smell of corpses is difficult to dissipate. As the smell accumulates, it becomes more and more obvious. Therefore, the Lord ordered the burial and burning of corpses, and assigned these dirty and tiring tasks to the temporary border troops stationed outside Yi City. The border army was not favored, and its internal structure was divided into 3, 6, and 9 classes. The lowest-ranking border army is the miscellaneous soldiers, and our protagonist Li Qing and his comrade Wang Er are among the miscellaneous soldiers. A few days ago, Wang Er was severely punished for offending the commander of the mixed forces camp, and suffered considerable injuries. It was evident that Li Qing took the initiative to take on Wang Er's part of the work. In fact, it's not that Li Qing is kind-hearted, it's just because he awakened the welfare of those who have traveled through different worlds. Before Li Qing's parents died, they handed him a jade pendant that was said to have been worn by immortals and passed down the family line. One night 7 days ago, Li Qing suddenly felt the ancient jade pendant on his chest heating up. Upon closer inspection, he discovered a faint Tai Chi pattern slowly circulating on the ancient jade pendant. So Li Qing immediately realized that the moment to change her destiny was finally coming. Item. Sacrificial Jade Pendant, Mystery. Equivalent sacrifice. As long as Li Qing sets a goal, the jade pendant will automatically calculate what needs to be sacrificed to achieve the goal. If the conditions are met, the jade pendant will provide positive feedback to Li Qing regarding the target set for sacrifice. To put it this way, a jade pendant is like a wishing pool, and if you want to get something from it, you naturally need to give something. At present, it seems that in the state where the set goals have not been achieved, sacrificial goals cannot be set again. Li Qing tried to set the first goal of strengthening the body and soul in a confused manner. After calculating for a while, Gu Yupei appeared with 3 lines of small characters. Sacrificial targets: 20 pounds of blood, 120 pounds of meat, and 150 pounds of bones. In this chaotic world, everything is lacking, especially anything to eat or wear. Since Li Qing came to Yi City with the border army, he has never seen what meat looks like. His daily military rations are barely enough to eat, but they are all coarse brand food, and he has never seen any meat or fish. Sacrifice with meat. It's really a waste. Just as Li Qing was feeling distressed and regretful about this, the corpse-picking task assigned by the higher authorities came. Isn't this a coincidence? Li Qing slapped her forehead and came up with a plan. The ancient Jade pendant did not mention what kind of meat this meat was. In theory, this human flesh should also be included, right? By the way, I also took a handful of human bones and a small amount of human blood, and gained more in one fell swoop. It's a never-ending journey. Li Qing felt a sense of satisfaction in her heart. Therefore, Li Qing didn't care about the towering stench emitted by these corpses and quickly became the most enthusiastic one in the mixed forces camp to transport corpses. As long as Li Qing transports enough corpses and secretly sacrifices one or half, it will not be easy to be discovered. Just eating coarse bran and swallowing pickled vegetables every day, Li Qing finds it difficult to keep up with the high-intensity handling work in terms of physical strength. In addition, most of these people starved to death before their lives, and there were still traces of being eaten on their bodies, so there wasn't much meat. Even some corpses seem to have been bitten by their own kind, with such a big hole in their waist and blood drying up. After working hard for 7 days, Li Qing barely managed to gather the amount of blood and bones. As for the meat, he only needs to secretly sacrifice 3 or 4 more pieces next, and he can gather up to 120 pounds. With victory in sight, Li Qing seemed to have been drugged and temporarily forgot about the physical fatigue. With just a burst of enthusiasm, he continued to repeat the work of moving corpses. Drag the corpse. Throw it into a deep pit. Occasionally sacrifice human flesh. This border army is only temporarily stationed in Yi City and will eventually be transferred to the border. It is said that the border is currently at war, and before that, Li Qing needs to improve his physical fitness as much as possible, otherwise he will only be stabbed into a hornet's nest when he arrives there. Let's move the bodies for the time being today. Wu, the commander of the miscellaneous battalion, rubbed his stomach and walked over, glancing at today's results and nodding very satisfied. Upon hearing the command, these miscellaneous soldiers, in case of amnesty, all dragged their tired bodies towards the temporary resting tent. Wait a moment. Suddenly, a furious shout came, and a type of miscellaneous soldier couldn't help but stop and look back. Li Qing on this side was even more nervous, and her palms were slightly sweating. Damn it! Did the sergeant discover the wrong number of bodies? Can't it? This thing is all over the city, who cares about the number of corpses? Stand up for me now. You lazy pigs. The commander of the miscellaneous battalion scanned these miscellaneous soldiers one by one with a fierce look in his eyes. Where is Wang Er? Where is he? Oh no! Li Qing secretly exclaimed in his heart that something was wrong. He didn't know that even if Wang Er remained honest in the team at this moment, the commander of this mixed forces camp would not let him go. Let's start from a few days ago. On that day, Wang Er accidentally stumbled upon the situation, process, and outcome of the soldiers' forced abduction of a civilian girl. The good news was shattered, and the soldier commander went to great lengths to destroy flowers and kill people. The 2 civilian women became part of the group lying in the corpse pit, never feeling hungry again. And Wang Er, as a witness, naturally won't be easily let go. When Li Qingzheng was lamenting the impending tragic fate of Wang Er, he suddenly noticed that everyone's gaze was focused on him. Li Qing couldn't help but shudder and said, "What does that mean?" I saw the Wu soldier slowly pacing towards Li Qing, following everyone's gaze. It seems that you are covering up for Wang Er at zhaoshuyuan.com, right? Li Qing glared angrily at the miscellaneous soldiers. You can guarantee that there will be no dizziness, physical disability, or inability to work in the future. When you need help, right? Wu Bingchang looked at Li Qing's dirty hands from moving corpses and said, "You seem to have done a lot of work like this. It's a bit righteous. You also helped Wang Er with his work. Wang Er has an injury on his leg, so I helped him." Li Qing hesitated and looked very scared. "Are you really helping Wang Er with his work out of kindness? Didn't you take the opportunity to salvage something from the body?" "No. No." Li Qing looked up in surprise, thinking that the commander of the Mixed Forces Battalion was targeting Wang Er, but he didn't expect it to be him. Fishing for something. Did he really discover something? I heard that in the batch of corpses brought in yesterday, there was a butler from the wealthy Zhang family in Yi City. Why did I search for him just now and find that everything on his body is missing, shouted Captain Wu. It turned out to be this matter, but Li Qing felt relieved when he heard Captain Wu say so. The theft of valuable items from the corpse has nothing to do with Li Qing. Li Qing doesn't know anything about Mr. Zhang or Mr. Go. The property on the body of the housekeeper of Mr. Zhang has nothing to do with him. Since it wasn't done by oneself, there's no need to be afraid of anything. Report to Commander Wu, I really don't know, Li Qing replied calmly. Captain Wu gave a fierce smile and then stared at Li Qing with a gloomy expression, I don't know. But how did someone just see you holding a round jade pendant? Come on. Peel off his clothes for me. Peel them all off. After speaking, several miscellaneous soldiers immediately surrounded Li Qing. Chapter 2. Successful Sacrifice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Li Qingdao was also witty. Before they could get into his body, he took off his outer coat 3 times and 5 times, along with his inner lining. He shook several times in the cold evening wind before putting it on. After a thorough operation, there was no special discovery. Pants. Wu Bingchang's face looked a bit ugly as he commanded the miscellaneous soldiers to flip Li Qing's pant pockets inside out. Li Qing's pant pockets are as empty as the air conditioning in October. Wu Bingchang's face darkened as he turned his head and glared fiercely at a mixed soldier huddled behind him. The mixed soldier trembled heavily. Li Qing recognized that the miscellaneous soldier was his roommate who lived on the same bunk, and was seen around the first time he took out his jade pendant. Fortunately, after Li Qing unlocked the sacrificial system on the Tai Chi Jade talisman, the jade pendant naturally recognized its owner and became a part of his body. Li Qing put on her clothes again, without even looking at the shop friend, and went straight to have today's dinner. Without him taking action, Wu Bingchang would treat him to a fierce whip, and it's hard to say if he can have all 5 limbs when he comes back to sleep. Late at night, when he pretended to wake up, he realized he was overthinking. The miscellaneous soldiers never returned. After confirming the snoring sounds one after another, Li Qing carefully left the bunk, crossed rows of miscellaneous soldiers, lifted the curtain, and arrived outside. The moon is clear and the stars are sparse. Although General Wu poured all his anger on the miscellaneous soldier today, his future life will not be easy either. When he goes to the battlefield, General Wu has 1,000 ways to kill himself. Only strength is one's own. Li Qing leaned against a wooden stake near the campsite, placing her hands on her abdomen, carefully feeling the message passing through her mind. The goal of this sacrifice is to strengthen one's physical fitness. Sacrifice price: 120 pounds of meat, 20 pounds of blood, 150 pounds of bones. The sacrificial requirements have been met. Do you want to offer a sacrifice? Li Qing took a deep breath and the little person in his mind nodded. In the next moment, the Tai Chi Pisces in my mind seemed to have come to life, swimming freely in the sea of emptiness. The ripples and waves it stirred up were reflected on Li Qing's body, making him feel like he was bathing in a hot spring, extremely comfortable and at ease. Then, from Dantian's chest, a warm breath slowly transmitted with some unknown magical power to all four limbs and bones. Li Qing opened his eyes and slowly stood up, lifting a wooden stake with his leg up. Click. The half-sized boy hugged the thick wooden stake and broke it in the middle. The familiar toe pain did not transmit to the mind. So powerful. A smile gradually bloomed on Li Qing's face. Now, let alone Commander Wu, it's not a problem to have 3 or 4 commanders. I'm afraid that the commander of the Jingbing camp, Yuqi, can also have the strength to fight a battle on his own. Li Qing found a place to put water and returned to the barracks with the coolness of the morning and the dew on the ground. The next day, Li Qing lowered her head, concealing her greatly improved physical fitness and her uncontrollable energy. Like elite soldiers, miscellaneous soldiers also need to be trained, and burying corpses is just an additional task. Wang Er stood beside Li Qing with a limp. Yesterday It was probably my fault, he added with a hint of guilt in his tone, I won't be able to do it in the future. Li Qing looked up in surprise, puzzled by the determined tone of Wang Er's second half of the sentence. Wang Er just shook his head, as if he didn't want to say anything more. The morning exercise ended quickly, and several old miscellaneous soldiers dragged their steps towards the place where the body was buried yesterday, but were stopped by Commander Wu. You guys come back. The miscellaneous soldiers have reorganized their formation. Li Qing glanced at Wang Er and saw that he was completely crooked, with a large amount of sweat on his forehead and pale lips, as if he was about to faint in the next moment. What's going to happen next? Li Qing's heart bulged, but her head remained buried, striving to be inconspicuous. Quickly, a man with extremely tight muscles stepped out of the elite army camp, greeting more than 10 miscellaneous soldiers in a row. Li Qing secretly looked out and saw a team of elite soldiers led by Captain Wei Qi on the other side of the training ground, 30 meters away. They were all experienced veterans, and at this moment, they were staring at the miscellaneous soldiers including Li Qing like hungry tigers and sheep. Wang Er beside him shook a few times and fell heavily to the ground, stirring up a large area of dust. A burst of laughter erupted from the elite soldiers on the opposite side. Commander Wu gave Wang Er a cold glance and ordered several people to carry him away. Li Qing now understands that Commander Wu brought them over to serve as flesh and sand for the elite soldiers. Who cares about the life and death of miscellaneous soldiers? As long as Wu Bingchang makes Yuqi Bingchang happy and transfers him to the Jingbing battalion as a deputy commander, he has much more promising prospects than staying in the mixed forces. Jingbing, in terms of physical strength and soybean skills, far surpasses miscellaneous soldiers. After several consecutive groups, no miscellaneous soldier can withstand a few punches on Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Mild cases have bruises and swollen faces, while severe cases vomit blood and become unconscious. It seems that they really treat them as sandbags. Several miscellaneous soldiers saw this situation and knelt down to beg for mercy. Li Qing could clearly hear the sound of their ribs breaking. Remember, although you are miscellaneous soldiers, you are also soldiers. Captain Wei Qi frowned and a flash of anger flashed in his eyes. On the battlefield, you can only die in battle, not beg for mercy. Li Qing sneered twice in her heart, thinking to herself, is this the reason why you don't treat miscellaneous soldiers like people? Wait a moment. As Li Qing stood in the front row of the team, Captain Wu walked to the center of the campus. You, exchange with him. Li Qing looked up and saw that the elite soldiers opposite him had been replaced by a man with a big and round waist. The man was naked, revealing his twisted muscles, and his eyes seemed to be spewing fire. This miscellaneous soldier is so powerful, let the madman compete with him. Wu Bingchang smiled and said in front of Wei Qi Bingchang. The madman heard the words and became even more determined to fight. He let out a roar and clenched his fists, causing his knuckles to crack. Li Qing took a step forward. He had heard of the name madman, who was fierce and fearless of death. As long as he was a recognized enemy, he would not give up until he fought to the death. According to his military achievements, he should have been promoted to captain long ago. Unfortunately, his mind was not very clever, so he could only give him more money in several meals for several people. Li Qing stared closely at the crazy man. He knew that his strength had only been enhanced, and his skill training was not sufficient. With just a slight mistake, there was a risk of dying in front of this crazy man. This is also what Wu Bingchang wants to see. Dueling has become a life-saving task, and he must give it his all. The madman saw his opponent still hesitating and leaped into the air in an instant. A few meters away, his fist fiercely brushed against Li Qing's face. Chapter 3. The First Test of Sharpness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Li Qing let out a breath and faced the crazy man with a desperate approach. He gritted his teeth and quickly turned his head. The madman failed with a single blow, without hesitation, but instead bullied himself and stepped forward again. His fist came from all directions, and Li Qing suddenly felt that he had been heavily surrounded, with no way forward or backward. Punching one after another, soon Li Qing's untrained lower body began to become unstable. He dodged twice in a row, and if he deviated 1 inch, he would end up with a broken skull. In the center of the school field, Captain Wei Qi shook his head at Captain Wu. He could see that Li Qing was evading and clearly showing signs of not supporting him. In 1 or 2 more rounds, the crazy man's fist would hit him heavily, and then. It was hard to say whether he could save his life. But as long as the crazy man is satisfied with the fight, why not kill one miscellaneous soldier? After all, when going to the battlefield, only the miscellaneous soldiers who are crushed to death can earn military achievements, and along with them, they can also gain glory. At this moment, the situation on the field suddenly reversed. I saw Li Qing suddenly give up dodging and charge towards the crazy man. Seeking death. The crazy man grinned and swung his right fist at Li Qing with force. Li Qing dodged with a short body, and in the next moment, he tightly grasped the wrist of the crazy man, who punched. The madman suddenly threw it, but it didn't slip off, so he raised his other fist and hammered towards Li Qing's unprotected back. Li Qingdanshan was hot and forcefully punched, then withdrew and seized the opportunity. Taking advantage of the moment when the crazy man withdrew his fist and regained his strength, he tightly grasped his other wrist. The crazy man had no experience of being grabbed by someone's 2 wrists on the battlefield. In shock, he struggled in a panic. Li Qing's waist and abdomen were filled with heat, and he bent his elbow forward, lifted his knee, and slammed into the gap in the middle of the crazy man. The crazy man quickly twisted his waist. Although he dodged the attack from the fatal part, his hands were restrained by Li Qing, and his center of gravity was unstable. Before he could react, he had already fallen to the ground. 1 punch, 2 punches. Li Qing stood on top of the crazy man, gritting his teeth and repeating his punching movements, each punch hitting the crazy man's head. Stop! Stop! What are you doing? Wu Bingchang regained his senses and rushed out, crossing his arm to pull Li Qing down. Li Qing snorted coldly, dodged the obstruction of Captain Wu, changed his posture, and continued to throw his fist at the crazy man in the face. Zah! Dog bastard! The crazy man, although in a weak position, still cursed vaguely in his mouth, with his thick arms crossed in front of his face. The other elite soldiers and miscellaneous soldiers who fought also stopped and looked at the expressions on the faces of Li Qing and the crazy man without saying a word. Who the bastard scolded? Li Qing seized the opportunity and punched the crazy man in the mouth, and several white teeth burst out. Dog. Dog miscellaneous. Scold you. The crazy man was panting heavily, his face covered in bruises, and he refused to beg for mercy. The noise on this side of the campus finally caught the attention of the commander of the barracks, Zhang Jiao. Who is the person fighting against the madman? Zhang Jiao asked the attendant next to him in confusion. Sir, yes. He is a miscellaneous soldier. Oh. Are there any such people among the miscellaneous soldiers? You go, let them stop and bring that miscellaneous soldier over. Li Qing finally stood up, with two crazy man and hee sounds. He also wobbled up and punched Li Qing before covering his face and returning to the team. Captain Wei Qi stared at Li Qing's figure, lost in thought. Before he could think for long, he took a few steps forward and whispered to Zhang Jiao, who was walking towards him, reporting the situation just now. Li Qing also lowered her head, her hands hanging beside her, and blood was still seeping through her knuckles. Your name is Li Qing, well done. If I don't come over, I'm afraid that the madman will be killed by you. Zhang Jiao turned his head and looked up and down at Li Qing. Commander-in-Chief, just now Wei Qi, the commander of the army, said that soldiers can only die in battle and cannot beg for mercy on the battlefield. Madman is indeed a soldier's material, and it is also the commander's ability to govern soldiers. Li Qing responded respectfully. Upon hearing these words, Captain Yuchi's serious expression suddenly softened. You're quite clever. Alright, come back to the team. Zhang Jiao clapped his palm and glanced at Wu Bingchang intentionally or unintentionally. Commander Wu quickly flattered and smiled, then lowered his head after thinking for a moment. Li Qing arched his hand and returned to the team of miscellaneous soldiers, but he clearly felt that the attitude of other miscellaneous soldiers towards him was different. Even in the elite army camp, he could occasionally receive glances. At least now, the commander has remembered it. In the future, if Commander Wu wants to create any obstacles for himself, he must also think carefully. He is still very satisfied with this achievement after the practice, except for those who couldn't get up. The miscellaneous soldiers lined up in scattered lines and gradually walked to the pile of corpses yesterday. Their tasks were not yet completed. All the miscellaneous soldiers had bruises and swollen faces, and the team was filled with faint pain and groans. Only Li Qing was there, burying his head in the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com to drag the body, as if he had infinite energy and strength. After subconsciously collecting a corpse into the Tai Chi Jade talisman just now, he suddenly felt a slight increase in the heat running in his body. Naturally far from catching up with the surging wave of the sacrificial target just achieved, but now he doesn't have any martial arts skills, so his strength can naturally increase. So he happily buried his head and started working hard again. Just now he made a name for himself, and the attention of others greatly increased. The difficulty of sacrificing the body also doubled. On the other hand, after a few simple flatteries, Commander Wu and Commander Wei Qi walked towards the miscellaneous soldiers. Li Qing. Wu Bingchang patted Li Qing's shoulder, his wrinkles trembling with laughter. I was exhausted just now. Look at the high sun, it's noon. Let's go eat. After a pause, the wrinkled face leaned closer again, and the foul breath sprayed on Li Qing's face. Captain Yuchi's suggestion is that you can eat with the elite soldiers in the future. Li Qing tried her best to suppress the nausea in her stomach, took a step back, arched her hand, and loudly said. Captain, I haven't finished my morning work yet. Besides, I went to the Jingbing camp as a miscellaneous soldier for dinner, which is not in accordance with the rules. Commander Wu's face darkened. Li Qing was so loud that all the miscellaneous soldiers around heard him. At this moment, the look in his eyes towards Commander Wu was full of contempt. Commander Wu's gaze turned cold, and this kid made himself unable to step down in public. As long as he stays in the mixed forces camp for a day, He will be subject to his own control for a day. You kid, wait. Wu Bingchang flicked his sleeves and turned around to leave. Li Qing turned around, bent down, and continued to repeat the movements of dragging, throwing, and occasionally collecting corpses, but secretly thought to herself. If you want to be arrogant and respectful, there's no way. Chapter 4. Yin Kai's Sacrifice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the military camp, after all, is different from other places. This is a place where strength speaks. Whoever has a big fist or a hard fist has a greater say. As for flattery, these things are not suitable for this world of weakness and power. After rejecting Commander Wu, it can be foreseen that he must have been calculating how to calculate Li Qing in his heart. It's only a matter of time before 100 punches come. Li Qing spat inwardly, thinking about how to improve his strength faster. From the current environment in which Li Qing is located, this chaotic era is still in the era of cold weapons. Although knives and guns are sharp in this era, their penetration is obviously much smaller compared to hot weapons like guns and cannons. Therefore, in ancient times, the protective effect of armor was very obvious. In the era of cold weapons, a good armor was comparable to 1,000 armies and horses. During the day, Li Qing glanced at the elite soldiers and saw their equipment. They only wore protective gear on their chest, back, and thighs, which were crucial points. Only the largest head wore a decent armor. Therefore, in this world, armor is obviously also a very important strategic material. As the saying goes, without any movement of troops, food and forage should take the lead. Similarly, strategic materials like armor must also be pursued by Li Qing. Even if you really get a pair of armor, you may still be taken away. Li Qing frowned slightly and pondered for a moment. Is there a type of armor that is neither ostentatious nor cared for by others? Suddenly, a flash of light erupted in Li Qing's eyes. With it, can we merge armor and body together? For Li Qing, the first thing that comes to his mind is the 18 bronze men of Shaolin Temple he has seen in TV dramas. Those guys are all steel and iron, invincible, and are not the ultimate form of armor. Thinking of this, Li Qing couldn't help but feel a burst of joy in his heart. He closed his eyes, and the image of an ancient jade pendant came to mind, praying devoutly. I want to have a copper armor that can be possessed at will, and I am willing to offer sacrifices for it. The great god of sacrifice, please point me in the direction. After devout promises, only a stir stirred up the sea of divine consciousness, causing the heavens and earth to change color. Then, the ancient jade pendant began to slowly react, only to see a faint white cloud seeping out of the jade pendant, and then a few small lines of characters appeared in the air in front of the jade pendant. Target of this sacrifice. Hard copper hidden Kai, can be summoned at will, sacrifice price. 36,000 kilograms of refined copper, 99 pieces of copper soul, sacrifice progress. Precise copper 0/36,000, copper soul 0/99. After reading these few lines of small characters, Li Qing was already sweating profusely. My jade pendant ancestor, you dare the lion to speak loudly. Li Qing, who was proud of coming up with a good idea for herself at the beginning, suddenly became somewhat disheartened. 36,000 kilograms of refined copper, do you know what the concept is? These refined copper pieces are enough to make 2,000 luxurious armor pieces. Throughout the entire barracks where Li Qing is located, there is no such quantity of armor. 2,000 pieces of exquisite armor, enough to dominate in a small place in this world. Where should he go now to get so much refined copper? In addition, he also needs 90.9 copper souls. Not to mention 90.9, he has heard of the word copper soul for the first time. Li Qing had a headache and glanced at the words copper soul. A small character explanation appeared. Copper soul is a collection of heaven and earth's divine and spiritual energy that has been produced for 100 years. Each one is like a jujube pit, containing enormous energy. If the 36,000 pounds of refined copper were already an unattainable presence for Li Qing, then these 99 copper souls were simply deadly. I want to cancel this sacrifice. Li Qing complained in her heart, secretly cursing why she had to do such a difficult task for herself all at once. The sacrificial mission cannot be cancelled. A cold line of small characters emerged from the ancient jade pendant. The cake is terrible. Because I am not familiar with the sacrificial process, I did not expect a huge mistake to occur during this second sacrifice. This goal is almost difficult to achieve and may even consume Li Qing's entire life. Li Qing, wake up quickly, wake up quickly. Immersed in the sea of divine consciousness, Li Qing heard a shout in his ear, as if someone was tapping his shoulder. Upon receiving his divine sense, Li Qing returned to the real world. Opening his eyes, he found Wang Er calling out to him from the side. What's wrong? Li Qing frowned as he looked at Wang Er, who seemed a bit flustered. A bad premonition hit him. Sure enough, Wang Er put on a bitter face and said, the gold camp just came to select someone. The Wu army commander was not well intentioned and even recommended you. Touching the gold camp. Li Qing frowned and secretly searched for information about touching the gold camp in her mind. Touching gold camp is a part of the weapons production department in this world. Specifically, it is to explore and excavate rare minerals and materials for weapon making. Mineral. Thinking of these two words, Li Qing couldn't help but curl up her lips. It's really hard to find a place to break through iron shoes, and it doesn't take any effort to get it. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Li Qing was worried about how to complete his sacrificial mission when he didn't expect such a good thing to come to his door. Looking at Li Qing's excited expression on his face, Wang Er thought he didn't know the strength of the touching gold camp and said, Li Qing, we can't go to this touching gold camp. If we go there, we'll have to go down to that dark pit to mine, almost never to return. Compared to the current mixed forces camp, touching gold camp may not be a good place, but there is at least a glimmer of hope for survival in the mixed forces camp. However, going to touching gold camp is almost equivalent to death. How could Li Qing not know the danger involved? However, the more dangerous the situation is, the enormous rewards it carries, especially for Li Qing. It's okay, Li Qing said calmly, looking at the void. Looking at Li Qing, Wang Er somehow saw a strong sense of confidence in him, and that confident aura almost made Wang Er worship him. Crazy, absolutely crazy. This is Wang Er's evaluation of Li Qing in his heart. For some reason, he always felt that the Li Qing in front of him was very different from before. So, as Wang Er had said, Li Qing was taken to Commander Wu's camp and saw a man wearing a white embroidered long shirt with his back facing him. Standing respectfully beside him was Commander Wu. Looking at the attire of the people from the Golden Camp, it seemed that they were not ordinary officers, and they were several levels higher than Commander Wu. Rich clothes and delicious food, one should have come from a wealthy family, Li Qing thought to herself. With a flattering expression on his face, Wu Bingchang said to the man in brocade, Zhao Gongzi, all the people you want are here. As the words fell, the man in brocade slowly turned around, indeed a delicate, little white face. Chapter 5. Catching People for Mining. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Xiao Bai Liener was dressed in a brocade robe and jade robe, with a thin body. There was a fierce expression on Xiao Bai's face, and looking at this person's face, Li Qing felt a wave of discomfort. Li Qing. What are you doing? With a loud sound, Wu Bingchang's whip was already whipping towards Li Qing. Pop! The whip landed heavily on Li Qing's body, and a hot and spicy feeling came. With Li Qing's current physical condition, this whip cannot harm his skin and flesh, but he still needs to pretend to be in pain. Ah! Li Qing pretended to scream in agony, then quickly lowered his head and used the remaining light to secretly scan the people around him. In the big tent, there are 5 people besides Li Qing, each with a much stronger physique compared to ordinary miscellaneous soldiers. Although not as good as elite soldiers, they can still be considered as elites in the miscellaneous camp. The little white-faced gaze swept over the 6 of Li Qing one by one, and then a cold voice came. Captain Wu, the quality and quantity of this time cannot compare to last time. Wu Bingchang accompanied him with a smile and said, Young Master Zhao, you may not be aware that our conscription has been quite difficult this month, so. The quantity is a bit small, but you can rest assured that I absolutely dare not hide anything. I dare not dare you either. However, Zhao Gongzi, is the manpower loss of the touching gold camp a bit fast? Shut up, said the young Master Zhao harshly, what is your identity? You dare to speak nonsense in front of me. Why? Do you also want to fill the mining pit? I dare not, I dare not. After being scolded by Prince Zhao for a while, Captain Wu's cold sweat kept emerging, indicating that he was also aware of the consequences of being taken away by the touching gold camp. Alright, these people, let's all go back with me, Zhao Gongzi said. In a few days, I will report to the higher authorities, and your benefits are indispensable. Thank you, Zhao Gongzi. Thank you, Zhao Gongzi. Wu Bingchang looked flattering again. The scene before him gave Li Qing a feeling that it was like selling human beings, and Li Qing was the fat that was casually sold on the chopping board. Someone, bring these people back to the gold camp for me. With the order of Prince Zhao, the soldiers of the Majin camp who came with him escorted Li Qing and others towards the outside of the mixed forces camp. No, I'm not going to touch the golden camp, Mom, I don't want to die yet, Captain Wu, please let me go. Except for Li Qing, all 5 people were in a state of ghost crying and wolf howling. They had long heard that anyone who had been to the gold camp before had not returned alive, and even died without a body. They all used their lives to fill the mine pit. Li Qing remained calm and obediently followed the team forward. As his gaze swept through the eyes of everyone in the mixed forces camp, he saw different expressions. Wang Er in the distance, with a sympathetic expression on his face. Commander Wu, with an arrogant and gloating expression on his face, seemed to have finally avenged himself. The other soldiers in the miscellaneous camp were numb, as if bidding farewell to a few cold corpses. The gold mining camp is located at the foot of deep mountains and old forests. Although it is remote compared to Li Qing's previous camp, the food supply is much better. On the way, Li Qing unexpectedly received a large piece of grilled meat as dry food, which was truly a delicacy in the world for the coarse grain of the mixed forces camp. On this side, Li Qing was feasting on the grilled meat, while the 5 people next to him were all worried, holding what seemed like a severed head meal or reincarnation meal, unable to taste it at all. The man in white rode a tall horse and, taking advantage of his position, could examine everyone from a high position. When his gaze fell on Li Qing, he couldn't help but become interested. Speaking of which, the man in white has come to the mixed forces camp to be important, not once or twice, and he has never seen someone as relaxed as Li Qing. That miscellaneous soldier, what's your name? With a flick of the whip in his hand, everyone's gaze focused on Li Qing. Li Qing was stunned for a moment, swallowed the meat in his mouth, and said, I'm Li Qing. Li Qing was also an ordinary name, and Zhao Gongzi asked with great interest, is this meat delicious? Yummy, yummy, yummy. Li Qing nodded hurriedly, looking like a starving ghost reincarnated. He deliberately pretended to be a funny jumping clown to dispel the suspicion of the man in white. Ha ha ha. Sure enough, the man in white let out a sinister laugh on his horse's back. If it's delicious, eat more to save yourself from being a starving ghost. Li Qing's useless behavior made the man in white think that he was a pitiful and foolish person who only knew how to eat, and his guard was also dispelled. Below, Li Qing still had a silly expression on his face, munching on the meat and looking at the man in white on his horse's back. He thought to himself, laugh, laugh, sometimes you cry. Before coming, Li Qing had already said hello to Wang Er. It seems that this gold mining camp has recently discovered a large mine, and Zhaoshuyuan.com has been mining for a while, which is why they always ask for personnel from the mixed forces camp. Because mining is a very dangerous job, there will always be collapse accidents, resulting in heavy casualties. The people who touched the gold camp didn't have to do these dangerous jobs on their own, so they came to the mixed forces camp to demand mining. As a result, the slightly stronger soldiers in the mixed forces camp were all captured. I don't know if it's copper or, it would be great if it were. Li Qing's calculations were ringing in his heart. A newly discovered copper mine should be able to meet his sacrificial requirements, right? This danger must be taken by Li Qing. Otherwise, his Dulong sacrifice mission may not be completed in his lifetime. Is it true that he has to rely on picking up scraps everywhere to gather enough of these 36,000 pounds of copper? This is clearly an impossible task to complete. In this way, the team returned to the main camp of Touching Gold Camp in a grand manner, and looking at the sky, it was almost dusk. The Touching Gold Camp is truly a major camp for excavating strategic materials. Its clothing, food, housing, and transportation are several times better than Li Qing's previous miscellaneous camps, and much stronger than those elite camps. No wonder that man in white can wear a brocade robe. Next, Li Qing and other people who had been conscripted from other camps gathered in one place, about 50 or 60 people in appearance. They followed the man in white to the camp of Touching Gold, and after being handed over, the man in white rode away on horseback. Alright, from now on, you are the ones who touched the gold camp. Forget about your previous camp, forget about your former friends, eat and drink enough to follow us in mining in gold. As long as you can get minerals and materials, there is a shortage of delicious food. A family member who was similar to a steward shouted, his official position is obviously much lower than that of Zhao Gongzi. Subsequently, Li Qing and others were assigned to several large tents to rest and wait for the next day to climb the mountain. Chapter 6. Dangerous Work. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. When he entered the camp, Li Qing glanced at it and found that it was different from what he had expected. As expected, Li Qing believed that this gold-touching camp would be piled up with copper blocks and copper mines, like mountains, but he didn't expect to find a single hair after entering the camp, which disappointed him a bit. In fact, Li Qing did not understand that the gold mining camp was just the main force for exploration and mining. As for smelting ore and creating copper armor, it was the work of the metallurgical camp and divine battle camp. So Li Qing's idea of obtaining enough refined copper for sacrificial use in the Touching Gold camp seems to have been shattered at the moment. Having a delicious meal and a good night's sleep, Li Qing and others were awakened early the next morning and went up the mountain to mine. In other words, this mine is currently newly discovered and still in the mining stage, and the specific mining location has not been determined. However, based on experience, they have already dug a 200-meter mine underground, which should be very close to the core. When Li Qing and others were taken up the mountain and appeared in front of the huge mine, he noticed that there were other people constantly walking out of the mine with stones on their backs, disheveled, as if they were natives from hell. That's right, the people who were recruited to mine before have not been completely depleted, and there are still a considerable number of people mining here. However, these people who came here before, after experiencing several mine collapses, have become like walking corpses with no vitality in their eyes. The people who survived the mining disaster continue to return here to mine, not knowing which day they will die from the collapse of the mine. What else is left besides despair? Why are you still cold? Go down the well. The supervisor next to him shouted sternly, and a whip hit Li Qing's body. Li Qing turned around and faced the supervisor, only to be whipped again. What are you looking at? Hurry up and get out of here to mine. The supervisor only asked Li Qing and others to go to the mine, but he didn't go to the mine himself. Obviously, he was also afraid of the hidden dangers underground. There's no way, at this critical point in the development of the matter, even if you have to grit your head, you'll have to go down. Brothers, let's go. Li Qing shouted and led the way towards the depths of the mine. The mine was excavated underground at an angle of nearly 60 degrees, with a width and height of about 2 meters. A fluorescent stone was placed every few tens of meters to provide illumination. Nevertheless, the pitch-black and deep mine remained like a huge abyss mouth, like a gateway to hell that devoured everything. Li Qing and others leaned towards the right side of the mine, while on the other side, people kept climbing up the mine with stones on their backs. After about a few tens of meters, looking back, the mine cave was already the size of a firefly. After walking more than 100 meters, the surroundings were already very dim. Not only that, the sound of ding-ding-dang stones coming from underground, as well as the sound of someone falling and rolling, became increasingly clear. Rao is Li Qing mentally prepared, already shocked, holding his breath and moving forward with a calm voice. Fortunately, Li Qing was the leader in the front. If it were someone else, now I'm afraid I might cry and shout at my mom to scare my pants. Finally, when Li Qing arrived at the end of the mine, he clearly felt a lack of breath, and in the midst of the intense fluctuations in his chest, he saw someone mining ahead. Use simple mining tools to chisel open the mountain and gradually lift the broken corpses onto the ground. The primitive mining method, without any protective measures, carries great danger. No wonder the people who came here to mine did not return alive. Unable to do anything, Li Qing gritted her scalp and picked up a piece of gravel on her back, then turned around and crawled towards the ground. The underground was filled with danger, and Li Qing felt an ominous feeling in her heart. There is no refined copper, no copper ore, and even the possibility of producing ore is uncertain. Li Qing doesn't know what will be waiting for him later. The mystery of fate lies in the fact that no one can know what will happen tomorrow or the day after, just like Li Qing never thought he could come to this world. In this way, Li Qing kept shuttling through the mine and gradually adapted to the eerie horror of the mine. Compared to others, Li Qing's only advantage is that his physical fitness is not much better, so even when others are already panting, he is still lively and energetic. As the saying goes, trees stand tall in the forest, and the wind will surely destroy them. Li Qing's outstanding performance caught the attention of the supervisor of the Touching Gold camp. Good kid, bold and talented, with good endurance, he can build talents. The supervisor who just whipped Li Qing a few times, now that he has been praising for the first time, it is obvious that the weasel is not well intentioned to pay New Year's greetings to the chicken. Li Qing pretended to be stunned and replied, "Thank you very much for your praise. Could you please give me more food tonight?" "Ha ha ha, no problem, no problem." The supervisor burst out laughing and said that as a supervisor, he should have followed everyone down the mine. But he was greedy for life and afraid of death, and did not dare to mine. The miners were like scattered sand, and the progress was very slow. Now, looking at Li Qing, a foolish person, taking the lead, the supervisor felt like a shepherd had found the head sheep, his eyes shining brightly. After a hard day of mining, there was no mining accident at jiaoshuyuan.com, which is great news for these new arrivals. Sure enough, in the evening, the supervisor brought Li Qing twice as much meat as the others, which greatly replenished Li Qing's tired body after a day of hard work. Li Qing is physically strong, but his food consumption is also very high. Previously, his food in the miscellaneous camp was poor, which only allowed him to unleash 30% of his potential. Now that we have arrived at the Touching Gold camp, there is a good supply of meat, allowing Li Qing's body to almost unleash its full potential. After eating and drinking enough, Li Qing only felt strong all over his body, the feeling of power that could control everything, even making him feel like he could lift a whole cow. His gaze swept over a huge stone outside the tent, and he looked around without anyone. With a force of his right hand, he lifted 1,000-pound stone with one hand. Drink, with a cold shout, the veins in his right hand burst out, and with all his might, he lifted the 1,000-pound boulder and flipped it over. Amazing, really amazing. Looking at her arms in front of her, Li Qing felt somewhat incredulous. From the appearance, it seems ordinary and unremarkable. I never expected that his explosive power would be so strong. If these arms were wielding over 100 pounds of weapons, it would be like a child. If the two armies were to face each other, who could resist a move in his hand? In his mind, Li Qing had already come up with a picture of wearing a heavy armor, holding a giant spear, and riding a horse to fight on the battlefield. What he lacked now was an opportunity to make achievements. The next day, Li Qing led the mining team down to the mine again to mine. The supervisor was even more pleasing to Li Qing, and having such an obedient ox and horse was simply his blessing. In this way, the days of mining continued for several days, and progress seemed to be relatively smooth. In the stones on the back of the ground these days, there were already some copper mines mixed faintly. Chapter 7. Sacrifice to Mineral Veins. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Li Qing secretly tried it out and found that these impure copper mines cannot be used for sacrifice, which means they still need to be refined. For more than 10 consecutive days, Li Qing traveled back and forth in the mine. On this day, Li Qing continued to dig mines as usual, and the copper content in the ore in his hand was getting more and more abundant. Vaguely, he seemed to hear the sound of cheering. What voice? Li Qing felt suspicious in her heart. Because the light was very dim, no one noticed at this moment, and waves of groundwater began to appear at the bottom of the mine. Not good. Run away. Run away. I don't know who shouted in the mine, but before everyone could react, the deep part of the mine suddenly collapsed, followed by surging underground water. Undercover river. It's an underground river. Obviously, the depth of this mine has penetrated the groundwater. The surging underground water rushed out in an instant, carrying the power of destroying the sky and earth, rushing into the mine and sweeping away Li Qing and his team. The cold underground water stirred Li Qing to flow everywhere in the underground river, and Li Qing felt that the constant rotation of the earth and sky was futile in the face of the powerful forces of nature. Even though Li Qing's physical fitness was several times stronger than that of an ordinary person, he was still carried by the surging underground river water and kept going deep underground. In the pitch black, Li Qing didn't know how long it took until he arrived at an underground cliff waterfall. Li Qing felt empty, as if he had been thrown into mid-air, and then slammed heavily into the water. When Li Qing woke up from the darkness, it was as if he had seen the stars in the sky. Climbing up from the water in a daze, the sound of flowing water could be heard in my ears. Underneath was a shallow pool, and above my head were numerous stars. Where is this? Is it a mysterious underground world? Continuing with the dim light, Li Qing realized that besides him, there were still some people lying down, but those people were not as lucky as Li Qing and could no longer stand up. Looking up at the sky, the fiery red gemstones were emitting a faint light. Thanks to these radiances, Li Qing music was able to see the surroundings clearly. Li Qing is located under a hidden river waterfall. Fortunately, he fell into the water from the waterfall and was washed up to the shore. The stones he stepped on under his feet seemed different. Li Qing leaned down to investigate, only to see that in the dim light, the giant stone under his feet emitted an ancient bronze light. Is this the mining eye? Li Qing was delighted in her heart. He came to the gold camp for more than 10 days and also heard some useful information here. For example, in some high-quality and huge mineral veins, ore holes are nurtured. The ore mine is the central area of the entire ore vein, where not only are there absolutely pure minerals, but also some mineral reserves are nurtured. Previously, Li Qing did not believe in these legends and believed that they were all baseless. Who would have thought that this extraordinary wealth would come to him today? If you don't die in a disaster, there will always be good fortune. Ha ha ha. Today I am so prosperous. After a wild laugh, Li Qing summoned the ancient jade pendant from his hand and placed it on a refined copper mine. The soft white light enveloped the refined copper mine and began to crazily absorb the energy inside. Visible to the naked eye, the originally ancient copper-colored refined copper ore began to slowly dry up. After about an hour, the refined copper ore had been sucked into small powder. It's done. Li Qing was excited and couldn't believe that the purity of the copper ore in the mine's eyes had reached the level of refined copper. Now his sacrificial mission had no need to worry at all. Sure enough, when Li Qing checked the progress of the sacrificial mission with the ancient jade pendant, the numbers on it had already changed. Target of this sacrifice. Hard copper hidden kai, can be summoned at will, sacrifice price. 36,000 kilograms of refined copper, 99 pieces of copper soul, sacrifice progress. Precise copper 100/36,000, copper soul 0/99, since that's the case, what are you waiting for? After climbing for a while, Li Qing embedded the ancient jade pendant into the top of the mine, and then began refining this mine. For a moment, waves of white halo appeared in the mining eye. As the energy of the mining eye continued to be consumed by the ancient jade pendant, the copper souls above began to flicker. The mine eye, which gathers the aura of the whole mine vein, can be said to be the heart of the mine vein. After the energy of the mine eye is consumed, the copper spirit starts to ask for essence from the mine vein to supplement. That is to say, Li Qing's ancient jade pendant is indirectly devouring the entire ancient copper vein. Sacrifice progress. Precise copper 600/36,000. Sacrifice progress. Precise copper 900/36,000. Sacrifice progress. Precise copper 1600/36,000. As the sacrificial mission continued to advance, Li Qing felt as if his body had also begun to be recast. He felt as if every cell in his body had given birth, and a bronze-colored light grew from each cell. In the depths of his divine consciousness, he could even see an ancient copper-colored body growing wildly, with tree roots inserted around its new body, constantly delivering nutrients to his body. The rebirth of the physical body brought a refreshing feeling to Li Qing. He closed his eyes as if he had been reborn in a hot spring, with all his limbs and bones filled with warmth. Gu Yupei was frantically devouring the energy in the mine eye, and after some time, only a crisp sound came, shattering the copper soul at the top of the mine eye. Then, Gu Yupei slowly floated back to Li Qing's chest. As soon as she opened her eyes, Li Qing's eyes burst into a burst of ancient bronze light, which was like copper lightning piercing through the night sky, instantly illuminating the entire mining eye like copper daylight. Drink! Li Qing let out a loud shout and rose into the air, flipping dozens of somersaults in mid-air, his clothes all torn apart. With the clothes shattering, a layer of black sticky substance fell off the body, revealing the bronze-colored skin inside. At this moment, Li Qing was like a virtuous, bronze man, enveloped in armor. Not only did every inch of Li Qing's body's skin shine with bronze, but even his hair turned bronze. With a turn, Li Qing slowly landed from the air, and his ancient bronze aura gradually gathered within his body, slowly recovering to his normal appearance. The hard copper hidden kai, which devoured the entire mineral vein and possessed Li Qing's body, was indeed not an ordinary product. Ding! Sacrifice successful. Obtain the hard copper hidden kai summoned by Coco at will. Stubborn as a rock. Sacrifice progress. Precise copper 36,000/36,000, copper soul 99/99, accompanied by the small characters appearing on the ancient jade pendant. The white light originally emitted by the pendant was unexpectedly dyed with a hint of ancient copper, turning into a faint copper color. Ha ha ha! Standing in the midst of the abandoned mine, Li Qing laughed heartily. He even sacrificed a 1,000-year-old ancient copper mine vein. Who can do such a crazy move? Ha ha ha. Chapter 8. Initial completion of Hidden Armor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, accompanied by Li Qing sacrificing the entire mine in vain, the entire mine shook violently. Without spiritual support, the mine experienced a powerful collapse. At this moment, the gold exploration camp at the foot of the mine is in chaos, with people constantly shouting, "Earthquake! Earthquake!" As the ore vein collapsed, Li Qing inside the mine also felt a violent shaking. Not good, this mine is about to collapse. Nevertheless, Li Qing was not panicked and could just test his new body, which had fused with hard copper hidden Kai, later referred to as hidden Kai. When Gu Yupei created the hidden Kai for Li Qing, the power of transformation also affected his body, which once again improved his physical fitness. Indeed, the greater the sacrifice, the greater the harvest. This harvest is a rare tribute to Li Qing's sacrifice. I saw a movement in Li Qing's heart. His normal body and skin began to crazily transform into bronze, and a powerful force that was suffocating came. After the light, as Li Qing's thoughts turned, a whole set of bronze armor appeared on Li Qing's body, just like he had imagined, and his hand shook. The chest armor of the ancient bronze armor is thick and solid, with complex totems carved on it, symbolizing the glory and strength of the warrior. The shoulder armor is towering, like a mountain, giving people an unparalleled domineering aura. The gaps between the armor pieces are tightly sewn with fine leather strips, ensuring smooth movement and effectively preventing enemy arrows and swords from invading. Armor is the most trusted companion of warriors, a solid backing for galloping on the battlefield and fighting bravely. The armor summoned by Li Qing is forged from pieces of refined copper, with a cold copper light on the surface, as if it can devour the sharpness of all enemies. Every piece of armor seems to have been meticulously polished by craftsmen, with sharp edges like knives, which can protect the owner from harm and become a powerful weapon for counterattacks. Handsome, Li Qing let out a heartfelt admiration. At this moment, Li Qing's combat effectiveness has soared to a terrifying level. If the combat effectiveness of an ordinary soldier is 10, then Li Qing's combat effectiveness has already reached over 1000. However, this armor is handsome, but too high. Profile. If he appears on the battlefield wearing this armor, it will be the focus of the battlefield. Being the focus of everyone's attention is not necessarily a good thing. Li Qing muttered and began to design another style of armor in his mind. The new style appears to be a set of armor, but in reality it is an ordinary soldier's robe, no different from the clothes worn by Li Qing as a miscellaneous soldier. The reason why the hidden armor can change its form freely is due to the copper soul of the mine eye. 99 copper spirits attached to various parts of the hidden armor, and the copper spirits, in accordance with Li Qing's ideas, transform the hidden armor into different forms. After completing his own design, Li Qing snapped his right finger and immediately transformed his armor into a robe. That's pretty much the same. Looking at the ordinary armor on his body, Li Qing was satisfied with this ordinary style. That's it. Taking a long sigh of relief, Li Qing felt that this mining eye could not last long. He planned to leave this place. I saw Li Qing vigorously kick down with both feet, shooting out into the air and heading straight towards the top of the collapsing mine. The hidden armor on Li Qing's body transformed into sharp copper claws on his hands and feet. Copper claws easily sliced open the ore, and with Li Qing's terrifying physical condition, he climbed freely between the cliffs like a wandering gecko. Boom boom. Accompanied by the sound of a giant rock collapsing and cutting, Li Qing's ears were heard. He was as fast as lightning, climbing mountains and stones all the way, swimming towards the top of the collapsed mine. After climbing for several tens of meters, Li Qing burst out from the middle of the ore vein with a loud bang, and could see the sky. Under the sunshine, Li Qing was wearing a hidden armor, and the copper claws on his hands and feet reflected a dazzling light. Fortunately, This place is deep in the mountains and forests, with few people coming, otherwise it would definitely spread. With his breath and voice restrained, Li Qing restrained his strength, his claws disappeared invisibly, and then slowly landed. Finally coming out. Returning to the ground, feeling his gaze shining brightly, Li Qing felt as if he had been reborn, truly feeling comfortable. Li Qing roughly calculated that with his current combat effectiveness, not only ordinary soldiers, but also hundreds of people from the elite camp, it would be difficult to harm him at all. The powerful power made him feel that fate was in his hands for the first time, which was really good. However, Li Qing did not deliberately promote himself, as he had only just arrived in this world. Who knows if there were any other ruthless characters secretly spying on him. Turning around, Li Qing looked at the mine that was once very magnificent, which had collapsed in an unrecognizable state. The mine seemed to have been emptied by someone, losing all its spiritual energy when searching for the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Without spiritual energy, even the rare beasts in the mine began to migrate in large quantities. Kill. Suddenly, there was a shout of killing in Li Qing's ear. With Li Qing's current hearing, he could easily hear voices from dozens of miles away. Looking towards the shouting and killing at the foot of the mountain, I saw that the gold mining camp at the foot of the mountain was engaged in a battle with a certain force. Interesting. Li Qing smiled slightly, moved his wrist, and took a step towards the foot of the mountain, only to find that it was over 10 zhang away. The touching gold camp was not a good place in Li Qing's eyes. He didn't need to wade through this muddy water, but in a chaotic world, joining a certain faction was an inevitable choice. The Zhao Gongzi of touching gold camp seemed to have some connections, so temporarily joining this big tree should be a good choice. When Li Qingfei arrived at the foot of the mountain, he quietly hid in a tree. Amidst the shouting of killing, the soldiers of the touching gold camp were wielding various weapons and fighting against a group of people carrying flower flags. It seems that there are about hundreds of people on both sides, fighting fiercely together. Looking at the commander of the touching gold camp again, he was standing in the rear with a few stewards to supervise the battle. Under the large command flag, Prince Zhao in white was also among them. Hua Ling San, we have no grudges for a long time, and we have no grudges recently. Today, you led troops to attack, probably not for this mine. A wicked man in the enemy formation laughed heartily and said, Zhao Xinyan, you look dazed and incompetent in your old age. You should still hand over this mine obediently. Perhaps I can still save your life. Zhao Xinyan shouted angrily, Flower Order 3. If you don't declare your war, I will definitely report back to the general and sweep you all away in the future. Humph, look, can you leave alive today? With a wave of the Hualing 3 spears, hundreds of enemy soldiers surrounded the perimeter. Chapter 9. Showcasing Strength. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the Majin camp was not originally a battle camp, and today it faced several times the enemy. It quickly fell behind, and as Zhao Xinyan's subordinates fell one after another, he swung his sledgehammer and rushed out. Obviously, this battle is related to this mine, and I don't know who leaked the news, which led to this catastrophic disaster. The main generals of both sides rushed to the scene, and for a moment, the battle became even more intense. Li Qing hid behind a nearby tree, watching as the touching gold camp slowly fell into disadvantageous territory. It was only a matter of time before the entire army was destroyed. Looking at Zhao Xinyan and Zhao Gongzi in white, they were gradually losing their support on the battlefield. The enemy came in waves of fighting like a tide, and the entire foot of the mountain was dyed red with blood. The air was filled with a fierce smell of blood. Bang. Zhao Gongzi, dressed in white, was thrown to the ground by a sweeping army with a single move, and his blood immediately dyed his white brocade robe red. My son. Be careful. Zhao Xinyan shouted, realizing that the young master Zhao in white was Zhao Xinyan's son. Zhao Xinyan's distraction also gave his opponent an opportunity to take advantage of it. The 3 spears of Hua Ling trembled and a cold light pierced Zhao Xinyan's chest. Even though Zhao Xinyan tried his best to dodge, he was still stabbed straight. Although the powerful impact did not penetrate Zhao Xinyan's body, it also flipped him off his horse. The 2 main generals of the Touching Gold camp fell from their horses, causing chaos among the soldiers of the Touching Gold camp, who were about to be annihilated. At this critical moment, a faint shadow drifted down from the ancient tree in the distance, approaching Zhao Xinyan and Hua Ling San in the center of the battle formation at an extremely fast speed. With a clang sound, a spear blocked Hua Ling San's assassination and rescued Zhao Xinyan and his son from the gates of hell. Hi! Who dares to ruin my good deed? Hua Ling San was furious and stabbed the person several times. The afterimage flickered, and the attack of Hua Ling San did not have a significant impact on Li Qing, because in Li Qing's eyes, everything on the battlefield was like slowing down several times. With Li Qing's current physical fitness, he rushed to the battlefield in a breath, which could invisibly resolve the danger. If it weren't for the consideration of hiding his own strength, Li Qing would have entered and exited 7 times in the formation of Flower Order 3 alone, and the opponent would have no way to deal with him. Hua Ling San was furious when he saw his attack being blocked by someone. He stabbed Li Qing several times with a huge spear in his hand, and for a moment, the cold sun enveloped Li Qing. However, Li Qingxi remained calm, holding a spear picked up from the battlefield. Li Qing and Hua Ling fought 3 times together. The confident attack of Hua Ling San in the past has now become a decoration, completely dissolved by Li Qing's ordinary spear. Dang! Hua Ling San fiercely chopped down from a high place and was easily caught by Li Qing. Li Qing smiled slightly, and with a force from his spear, a powerful force was instantly transmitted to Hua Ling San's hand. Hua Ling San felt a tingling sensation in his arms, and his whole body was forcefully thrown out, landing heavily on the ground with a loud bang. Hualing Sanyi stood up from the ground with a frightened expression and said, "Who are you?" Li Qing smiled slightly and a ghostly figure flashed, instantly moving in front of Hualing San. He pointed his spear directly at the opponent's throat and said, "Now, you have 2 choices. Hurry up. The speed is very fast. I didn't even see clearly how Li Qing appeared in front of me when I was almost at Flower Order 3. 1. Take your people and retreat from here immediately. Secondly, I'll take out you and your subordinates. Let you completely disappear from this world. You're reckless." "Humph," Li Qing sneered with a fierce expression, "when I count to 3, you can choose what you want. 1. Don't be too arrogant, I am from the later Tang dynasty. After the General Hua's family. I am the one who has fallen, and there are millions of people standing up. 2. Kill me, my big brother won't let you go, ah. 3. I surrender, I surrender. I withdraw immediately. I withdraw immediately." Li Qing was very satisfied with the result and withdrew the spear he had stabbed in his hand, saying, "Not bad, not bad. Those who know current affairs are heroes." Hua Ling San broke free from the shackles of Li Qing, but suddenly stood up and shouted, "Retreat. Retreat, your M's retreat. Wudao never tires of deceit in battle, and this Flower Order 3 is clearly not a gentleman who believes in promises. On the other hand, if he were a gentleman, he would not have come to seize this mine. If it were an ordinary person, they might not be able to withstand this sudden change." Fortunately, Li Qing was on guard. On the battlefield, Hua Ling San was the enemy leader, and it was said that the king should be captured first when capturing thieves. Only by subduing him can the enemy be forced to retreat. However, it is not very easy to defeat opponents. Hua Ling San's giant spear pierced Li Qing's vital point, so close, so short reaction time. In between, Li Qing grabbed with his right hand and forcefully grabbed the giant spear of Hua Ling San in the air. The giant spear was restrained, and the expression on Hua Lingsan's face changed from ferocious to fearful. Li Qing's powerful force made Hua Lingsan feel fearful. It seems that you don't believe I have the ability to make you fly into ashes. Li Qing stared at Hua Lingsan, whose powerful power almost suffocated him. Hua Lingsan is also a warrior who has experienced countless battles. Even though he knows there is no chance of winning, his body still instinctively makes a posture to continue attacking. The giant spear in his hand was restrained, and he raised his hand to shoot 3 hidden weapons from under the cuffs of his armor. 3 hidden weapons, with the strong mechanical force of springs, shot fiercely at Li Qing's face door. Dang! Li Qing's heart twitched and the hidden armor transformed into a mask, directly throwing 3 cold arrows away. There was no way he could stop this sudden cold arrow, as both hands were holding the flower ring 3. To live is indeed more difficult than to kill. Li Qing muttered, "If you play tricks with me again, I will lose my life." Li Qing spoke in the gentlest tone and the coldest words, but Hua Lingsan knew he definitely had such strength. You. Hua Lingsan played all his tricks, still like ants in someone else's hands, as if Li Qing could take his life with just one move of his finger. This is the suppression of absolute power, which makes Hua Lingsan lose his resistance. People are selfish, and although their greed for mines is huge, they still choose to withdraw despite their small lives being in danger. Okay, I'll go. Hua Lingsan squeezed out a few words from his mouth. Li Qing nodded in satisfaction and exerted all her strength, flipping the flower ring to the ground in 3 seconds, with a loud bang falling several meters away. Humph, don't be complacent. One day, I will definitely take your head off your neck. Hua Lingsan cursed and climbed up from the ground, then retreated with his subordinates in a disheveled manner. Although Hua Lingsan tried to show off his strength, he clearly felt that he was not on the same level as Li Qing, and not leaving would only waste his life. Watching the enemy retreat, the Zhao family father and son, who were touching the Jin camp, looked shocked until Li Qing arrived by their side and then stood up to thank them. Chapter 10. The Grace of Saving Lives. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, thank you very much for your help. I will definitely remember the kindness of saving my life. Zhao Xinyan's face was full of gratitude, and compared to his precious son, he was obviously much more mature. This is a dog, Zhao Dongying. Zhao Dongying looked at Li Qing with a surprised expression on her face and said, haven't we met somewhere before? On that day, Zhao Dongying recruited Li Qing into the gold camp and had a deep impression of him. But how could someone like him really care about Li Qing? He has long been thrown into the clouds. Li Qing smiled and said, Zhao Gongzi, I am Li Qing from the Touching Gold camp. Li Qing. Zhao Xinyan and Zhao Dongying's father and son had a bit of confusion in their minds, and they couldn't even remember that there would be such a powerful number 1 figure in the Jin camp. It's okay. If there's anything, let's talk about entering the camp. Zhao Xinyan ordered his subordinates to clean the battlefield while pulling Li Qing into the camp to ease his embarrassment. Speaking of which, we cannot blame Zhao Xinyan and Zhao Dongying for not knowing Li Qing. Firstly, it is because Li Qing's sense of existence is already low. The second reason is that the people who were recruited into the gold mining camp with Li Qing have all died in the previous mining accident, and even the supervisor is missing. Therefore, it is reasonable that no one knows the specific information of Li Qing. After all, in this chaotic world, who would pay special attention to the origin of an ordinary miscellaneous soldier? However, today is different from the past. Li Qing's battle today was like a god of war descending to scare off the enemy, and for a while, he gained a great reputation in the gold camp. Saving the lives of hundreds of people in the Touching Gold camp with the power of 1 person is an unprecedented event in the entire dynasty. However, even with Li Qing's intervention, in this battle, the Touching Gold camp still suffered heavy losses, with over 500 soldiers in the entire camp, 100 killed and over 200 injured. The damage rate was extremely high, especially for the team that first came into contact with the enemy. Almost all soldiers, including the commander, died in battle. It may take several months to restore the previous combat effectiveness. After evacuating to a safe area, Zhao Xinyan rested his camp while sending messengers to his superiors, hoping to receive some help from them. After all, Muajin camp is not a field unit, so such a fierce battle should be avoided as much as possible. With the incident of rescuing the Jin camp from danger, for several days, Li Qing was honored as a guest by Zhao Xinyan, and both sides gradually became familiar with each other. From Zhao Xinyan's words, Li Qing also gained some understanding of the environment he was in. Originally, Li Qing was currently in a small vassal state called Later Zhou. The vassal kings of Later Zhou were surnamed Chai and ruled over the land of about 2 states. The Later Zhou dynasty was located in a land of chaos and warfare, and surprisingly bordered 5 feudal states. Later Tang, Shangmu, Xiatang, Daxiong, and later Jin. Imagine how difficult it is for a vassal state to be surrounded by 5 coveted individuals in the center. These 5 vassal states always wanted to profit from the Later Zhou, so they often launched troops to attack, resulting in the Later Zhou's territory becoming smaller and smaller. Just like how the Flower Order 3 of the later Tang dynasty fought without declaration, leading troops directly to seize the mines, it was simply a bandit style. How could there be any trace of the demeanor of a feudal state? Chaotic times at present, the chaos between all the feudal states has begun to abandon all constraints, and the world is rapidly entering a chaotic era. At this point, Zhao Xinyan looked angry and said, "Think of me in the later Zhou dynasty. Under the leadership of General Zhao Mu, you were the hegemon of the Central Plains. I never expected to be bullied by these petty people now." Looking at Zhao Xinyan's proud expression of nostalgia for his past glory, Li Qingfu said, "Commander, you don't need to worry or be angry. Dynasties change and prosper, and there will be reincarnation. Perhaps in a few years, I will also have my own invincible generals in the later Zhou dynasty, sweeping away the current decline." Listening to Li Qing's words, Zhao Xinyan couldn't help but nod, and then suddenly remembered something. His eyes were fixed on Li Qing and he said, "Li, you're right. Ha ha ha, you're right. Ah." Then, Zhao Xinyan's gaze glanced at Li Qing for a moment and said, "Not bad, not bad." As expected, heroes emerge as teenagers. Zhao Xinyan's scrutiny made Li Qing very uncomfortable. "Zhao Tongling, is there anything wrong with me?" "Ha ha ha. I was impolite, ha ha ha." Zhao Xinyan burst out laughing and then continued, "Li Zhuangshi, do you think how should we set up defenses in the Jin camp now?" Li Qing frowned and said, "The gold rushing camp was not originally part of the field forces, and now it has suffered heavy damage. In my opinion, we should take the initiative to abandon this mine and retreat to the elite camp, where the soldiers will unite, just in case." That's right, that's right." Zhao Xinyan nodded with a smile. Zhao Dongying, the son of Zhao Xinyan on the side, was a bit anxious and said, "Father, this mine has consumed countless of our energy. We just gave up in vain. Isn't our hard work in vain? Not everyone can give up on immediate benefits. This mine is the largest vein discovered in recent years. If it could produce a huge amount of copper ore, it would be a great achievement. How can one say to give up and give up?" Zhao Dongying, like Hua Lingsan, has a strong greed in her bones, which covers their eyes and prevents them from seeing further strategic goals. In fact, Zhao Dongying didn't know that this vein had been abandoned, and all the essence of the vein had been picked up by Li Qing. Li Qingdao said, "As the saying goes, if we leave the Green Mountains here, we won't be afraid of running out of firewood. Commander, we need to think carefully about it. In fact, no matter what happens in the future of this touching gold camp, Li Qing wants to leave here. After all, he has already obtained what he wants and staying is meaningless." Ha ha ha. Zhao Xinyan suddenly burst out laughing and said, "Li Zhuangshi, I didn't expect your idea to be the same as mine. Withdrawing to the Jingbing camp and merging into one place is also a solution that I have been thinking about for a long time. Father, you really want to give up this mine? Zhao Dongying was a bit anxious. Inger, strategically, you should learn more from Li Zhuangshi, focus more on the overall situation, and start from the overall situation in everything. Zhao Xinyan taught a lesson. Although Zhao Dongying was full of dissatisfaction in his heart, he didn't dare to disobey Zhao Xinyan's words on the surface. However, privately, he glared at Li Qing with a vicious gaze. Li Qing couldn't help but feel speechless. Zhao Xinyan had a broad mind, but unexpectedly gave birth to a son as narrow-minded as Zhao Dongying. So, in the following days, while treating the wounded and taking a short-term rest, the Touching Gold camp orderly evacuated towards the direction of the Jingbing camp. Upon embarking on the path of return, Li Qing couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement as he wandered back and forth to the Mixed Forces camp. How to put it, after all, the Mixed Forces camp was his mother's home, the first place he stayed in this world, and some special feelings made sense.